Okay, so today we're going to talk about health. Okay, and this is a lot of things on this subject is going to be according to the Rambam, who's Maimonides. Now, the Rambam passed away on Chaf Tevet, which is this month, which was on Sunday. Okay, that's it came on a Sunday, 20th. And the Alter Rebbe, who was the first Chabad Rebbe, passed away on the 24th of Tevet. So we're right now between two yartzites, okay, the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe. And we see, though, it's interesting that the Rambam talked a lot about health. And you'll see we're going to talk about what he talked about health. And the Alter Rebbe talked about your soul. Okay, so here we have body and we have soul. So here we're going between the two of them, and we'll talk about the healthy body, and then we'll talk about emotional health, and we'll also talk about the health for the soul. Okay, so the Baal Shem Tov, who started Chassidus, he always said that you need to use your physical body to serve God. Can't serve God just with spiritual things. We need to use our healthy body to serve Hashem. Because if we're unhealthy, what happens? You can't serve Hashem. Yeah. You can't do anything. You can't do anything with your life. And the Maggid, who was after the Baal Shem Tov, said, a small hole in the body is a large hole in the soul. So in other words, when our body has any kind of problems, it's affecting our spiritual life. It's affecting everything around us. So let's go back to the little bit of the history of what health means, according to the Torah. So if we see the first verse in the Torah says, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The word for created is bara. If we take that root word in Hebrew, the word for health is what? Anybody?
Briut.
Briut. Very good. Bara and Briut is like the same letters. So God created what? Health. When he created the heavens and the earth. It's the first thing he created was health. Right away, right when we came into this world. Then we know that Adam and Eve came along. And what did they do? They sinned. And what happened when they sinned? Bad stuff came into the world. Right? So unhealthy stuff came into the world. So God, when he created the world, the first thing he created was took darkness and light. So we talked about this last week, about the light pushing away the darkness, or the light taking the place of the darkness, or the light actually elevating the darkness. So when we talk about light, we're talking about health, right? Beautiful. Luminary. Something that's illuminated, right? It's something really positive. So then we go further down in the Torah, and we see Abraham, who was the first person that recognized God. It says that Abraham wore a stone on himself, which was called the healing stone. And people would come to him and get healed from that stone.
What color was the stone?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. Yeah, it would be interesting to know what kind of stone it was. I don't know. What color she's asking.
I first hear about some stone. Who had stone?
Abraham. First Jew had a stone. But he felt that people are going to start worshiping the stone. So what did he do with the stone? He threw the stone up into the sun. And so what has very, very healing properties? The sun has healing properties. But if we get too much sun?
No good.
No good too, right?
Right.
So it has the healing property to a certain extent. Okay, then we go down to Yaakov, and the first person to ever be sick and pass away is Yaakov. Because before that, what would people do? They would cough or sneeze, and they would pass away. But Yaakov begged God, he says, please God, you know what, I want everyone to know when I pass away so that they'll be prepared. So God made that he should be sick and lay in his bed, and after that, he passed away. Moses, we see another thing about healing, about Moses. Moses, after the splitting of the sea, the Jews were in a place called Mara, which means bitter. They drank from this bitter water, and it was horrible, right? So what did Moses do? He threw a certain herb into the water, and it turned sweet. So this was also a healing power, taking an herb and making it.
How many years apart is this?
Okay, so we're talking about from 0 to 1948, which is where Adam and Eve, Abraham was born. 1948 from the world, creation of the world. No, not 1948 now. 1948 from the creation of the world. We have the year 0, then we have the year 1948, and then we have Moses in the year 2448.
Oh,
okay. So it's like 2,000 years later.
Two different
eras.
Yeah.
I was just going through different things in the Torah. It talks about healing. It's kind of like a little bit of a history.
But I mean, like two different, what do you call them?
Well, it was
who...
It was like a cycle. What was it? First we have Adam, who was just the first person in the world. Then we have Avram, who's the first person to recognize God. And then we have Moses, who actually created the Jewish people, the Jewish nation. So you have 3 different stages.
And
in a
each
way.
one, through different time frame, did some kind of healing.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So we're just going through this idea, and then slowly we'll come to explain about healing in general. Okay. And it also says that Moses was taught the herbs that actually heal. So that's basically going back. But in the Torah later on, it does talk about healing too. It says, Ani Hashem Rofecha, I am God, your healer. But it also says in Mishpatim, which is in Shemot, it says Rapeh Yerapeh. You have a way to heal. In other words, what we're saying here is, yes, God is the healer, but you need to do your part to heal. So in other words, the doctor has the permission to heal, and God will heal. So we need to make the vessel for healing, and then the healing would automatically come down to the right spot.
So how you like to use this? God heals, and doctor gets me.
Doctor gets the fee, yes.
Like
but the doctor still does something. Okay, so let's go to this idea of health and also see in the Torah what God talks about health. So we said that he says, I am God your healer, but at the same time he also tells the doctor he should heal.
Yeah.
And then it says, Hishamer lecha yishmar nafshecha ma'od, and then Vishamartem es nafshesechem. So in other words, we not only have to heal ourselves, but we need to do preventative healing. And that's what it means, Vishamartem es nafshesechem. You should watch your soul. Keep watch on your soul. In other words, he's saying not only should you heal people, but also you should prevent yourself from getting sick. And why should you do all this? Why does it say nafshosechem? Why are we talking about your soul? Because what do we do when we heal our bodies? Why do we heal our bodies? In order to know God more and more. That's the reason we come to this world, to know God. Now, let's go further in history, and we're going to talk about Maimonides, the Rambam. The Rambam lived about, I believe it was about 1135, I think he was born. Somewhere around there. And he wrote a lot of different things about healing. His 4 basic principles of health were the food quantity, the food quality, right? How much food, what kind of food, exercise, and elimination, which means going to the bathroom. Okay, those are the 4 things that are very important to him. And he also said that in the Talmud, the Zra'im, which talks about agriculture, comes first in the Talmud and in the Mishnah. Why? Why does agriculture come first? Because we can't live without food. It doesn't happen, right? So here's what Rambam says. Physical things that we need to pay attention to. One cannot, this is what is a quote from the Rambam. One cannot understand or have knowledge of his creator if he is ill. Therefore, he should avoid that which harms the body and accustom himself to that which is healthy and helps his body become stronger. So what are the things that Rambam tells us that we need to be careful with? Number one, do not eat unless you are hungry. Don't drink unless you are thirsty. Not like when we see a piece of cake, what do?
Try it.
Right away we want to try it.
Yeah.
Are you hungry? Are you hungry? Are you really hungry at that moment?
Probably not. No,
Most likely
no,
not.
most likely not.
Most likely not. But that cake looks amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of,
I see you're hungry, so. Okay. Your stomach should only be 3/4 full. What does that mean? Means don't eat till the end, until you're stuffed till here.
right.
That's not what you need to do. Also drinking. Don't drink water during your meal. Why? Because when you drink water during your meal, what happens?
You fill your stomach with it.
Not just that, the food just gets thrown down and goes right through your body without being digested properly.
Really?
So yes, so drink a half hour before your meal. The only thing you're allowed to drink with the meal is a little bit of wine, but nothing else. Or after the food is digested. So when you finish eating, wait a little bit and then you can drink water. Okay, when should you exercise?
In the morning.
You exercise, you walk. It's very good to walk before you eat to raise your body temperature, not after you eat.
Walk in the house or outside?
Whatever you like.
Just walk.
Just walk.
How long?
Everyone's different. We cannot say one person walked this amount, one person walked that amount. Every person can feel how much they need to walk.
Not force yourself.
No, not forcing yourself, but little by little, walk more and more. It's important to walk. Unripe fruit is very dangerous for you. If the fruit is not ripe, don't eat it. The Rambam calls the best foods figs, grapes, and almonds. He says are the best foods. What?
Is it vegetables?
No, it's
That's a fruit.
It's a fruit.
That's a fruit.
Pineapple.
It's a pineapple. But you make bori pri ha'adama. But it's still a fruit.
But we don't use it yet. Rambam is saying that we
Unripe fruits. Unripe fruits. Unripe. You know what unripe is?
Недозрелые.
Like a green banana. Fruits are good. Actually, fruits are good to eat by themselves. They're not good to combine with other fruits. But to eat by itself, a fruit is very good, actually. Also, the Rambam usually says with almonds, it tells you to soak it.
What are they doing?
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay, almonds. We should soak it for at least 8 to 12 hours before you eat it, because almonds, the skin actually is not so healthy for you. And he says honey and wine is good only for elderly people, not so much for young people. No.
When you say elderly people, what age we talking?
I don't know. This is the Rambam.
After 50.
You know what? I think I will tell you
I read
something.
up to 40.
We don't know right now, and I'll tell you why. Because the age expectancy has changed. So we don't know what it means to be old at this point. Which people are old? 20 years ago, a person who was 75 years old was old. Now someone who's 75 is still young. Because people live till 90 now.
I read in the book that Rambam
In
After
those
fo-
days,
after 40.
in those days, it was after 40. What does after 40 in his time mean now? He passed away not even 70. I think it was before 70 he passed away. So I'm just saying, so if he passed away before 70, then 40 means you're getting middle age already, right? But if people live till 90, I think it's more like 60 right
It
now.
depends on how person
How you
feel
feel,
about
yeah,
themselves.
Maybe.
They can
You're
be
probably right.
born old.
Yeah, you're
Some
an
people
old
can
soul, right?
die young.
So, also summer, eat 2/3 less than the winter. In summer, we shouldn't be eating as much. Try to sleep at least 8 hours. I hate to tell you guys this, but the Rambam holds that 8 hours is the best amount of time to sleep, even though he slept 4.
I'm sorry, what about to study Torah at night? Or
The Rambam says to
Same.
be healthy, you need to sleep at least 8 hours. That's what he says. I can't say for other people, because if you know what the Rambam only slept 4 hours a night. So he didn't live up to what he was saying too. Is it still on?
Special.
Okay, when you go to sleep, you should go to sleep first on your left side and turn over to your right side. Yeah. And he holds that you shouldn't nap during the day. It's not good for you.
Why
not
does it
talking about
matter
pregnant
which
ladies.
side?
What?
Wait, you should or you
Because
should
the
not?
right side is the digestive side. So if you're going to sleep on the left side, you don't interfere with your digestion.
Wait, do nap or don't nap?
No, don't nap.
Right.
Also, don't go to sleep till 3 to 4 hours after you've eaten, because that's no good for your stomach either. Then we go to the elimination part. He says go to the bathroom right away, never hold it in, avoid constipation, try to eat more vegetables so you don't have stomach problems and not be able to go to the bathroom. He also says lighter food should be first and then heavier food. So if you're eating a meal, try to eat the lighter food first.
Right. That's why we eat fish first and meat second.
Second, right, exactly.
You never know. You start from one thing.
Actually, interesting to see is that the Rambam holds that salty, large fish is not good for you, which is interesting. We don't know, because you have to remember that nowadays people are a little different than them, but I do believe that large, salty fish is not that great for you either, even though Russians love it.
You're talking about smoked.
Like salt, he says salty, yeah, salty
Okay,
fish. He's
smoked.
large, salty fish. Yeah. It's a lot, right? It's not so good for you. Also, don't combine heavy foods. Like, don't combine proteins and carbs, like meat and potatoes. That's like the worst thing you can combine together. And fruit. Actually, he holds you don't eat fruit at a meal. You eat fruit for a snack in between. Yeah. Because if you eat fruit in a meal, it's heavy for your stomach. Yeah, to combine it with meat or fish. Also, he says avoid spices in the summer. But you have to remember that each person is very unique. Everybody has the food that they do well with or that they don't do well with. I know I was on this diet for 2 years, which is called 8th Constitution of kosher living or something, Torah living, I think that's what he called it. So it goes according to your makeup, your body makeup, what foods you should eat, which foods you shouldn't eat. Also chew your food very well. Because if you don't chew it well and you just swallow it, even the very good food for you doesn't become part of you. It just goes right through you, and it can give you ulcers or whatever you want in your stomach. It's not good for you. And he even holds that overeating is worse than harmful food. So if you eat a little bit of something that's not so good for you, it's better than eating a lot of something that's good for you. If a person exercises, even if he eats harmful foods, it helps. It makes a difference in his life. People that are weak should only eat small meals. Little by little by little. Small little meals, like every 3 to 4 hours. You eat a little bit of food. Like elderly people and people that are weak, or even people that have a hard time working on themselves, or they're so used to the same kind of food they've been eating for so many years, you can't make them change. What you could do is say, okay, so like I said with my mother, I said, don't eat sugar. So that was the one thing, which didn't work with her even so. But I'm saying is maybe one little thing, take upon yourself and don't do everything at once, because when we do everything at once, it's like those diets. You know, people make these crash diets, and then what happens after the crash diet? After a couple of weeks, you gain double the amount,
Yeah.
right? You go back and you gain double the amount. Why? Because a crash diet doesn't work. It only works when we have, you know, we work on ourselves little by little. When you take a shower, Rambam says you should start off with warmer water and start and make it colder and colder and colder to get used to the cold water, because very hot water is not the greatest thing for you when you bathe. Why?
I read in the book, in the Rambam thing,
Yeah.
when you take a shower, after shower you have to take also hot water.
That's if you're taking a
drink.
hot shower.
Right, because
But if
said
you
if
take-
you take
Right.
hot shower for your body, and
Yeah, you can
have
get
to
sick,
go in,
right.
you have
But
to-
that's
after
why he also says start with hot and get it a little colder and colder and colder, so by the time you're finished with the shower, the water has gotten cold. And that way, it's healthier. That way you don't get sick. Now, because a hot shower, you get out, your whole body is open, so you can get sick much easier. Yeah. He says, okay, these 4 things work, but there's 2 exceptions. What are the 2 exceptions? Does anyone know? In other words, these 4 things that he said that are very important. What did he say? He said the quantity of food, the quality of food, the elimination, and the exercise. Those are 4 important things. But what am I missing that if you do those 4 things, it still might not work? Because what?
You have to believe in it.
The soul.
No. We're not talking about soul. We're talking about body. Let's stay with the body. We'll get to the soul emotions and the soul later. Right now to the body. In the body, what could go wrong? Even if we keep all this, we eat well, we
you have to stay clean.
exercise. Besides the cleanliness, what else?
Mentally,
Schedule.
We're not in charge regardless.
But why? Think
God
you're
is.
getting there. We're not in
Believe
charge
in
of
God?
ourselves, believing in God, all that. But physically, I'm talking about.
You
Let's
need
get back to the
know
physical.
when you are eating, what you are
before
eating.
a shower.
Besides the
Schedule.
food, we already
Schedule?
talked about the food. We said about the schedule. We talked about the food. We talked about exercise. Besides food and exercise, what could go wrong in a person's body that they didn't know about before?
We don't have to eat
Someone
any
can get
food
pregnant.
before shower.
We're not talking about exceptions in general.
No food before shower.
Wow.
Okay, we're not talking about food and we're not
That's-
talking about shower. That's all those things are
Very
fine.
important
Very
connection with
important
soul.
thing. No, not about the soul. We're talking about body right now. So what 2 things? There were 2 things that could go wrong in a person,
pray.
even if they did everything. They exercised. They did all these food things. They're so healthy.
They can get sick,
Say
they can
brachas.
die.
How could they
Mati,
get sick
say
and die?
brachas.
Like, what can happen?
Say brachas.
Yes, really.
Yes, they say this.
We
Say a
have to
bracha.
say
Why? Why? What could go wrong?
Connection with
Do you
God.
remember about diseases? Genetic diseases. Nobody thought about genetic diseases, right?
Right.
People are born with heart conditions.
Yes.
That their parents had heart problems. That their parents had some other kind of disease. They had a special disease in their family. Those kind of things can't be avoided. Right? So those are the reasons why we need to get genetic testing. The second thing we need is vaccinations against diseases that come later. What if there's a breakout of smallpox? Not, God forbid, since the 70s we haven't seen a breakout of smallpox. But I'm saying, God forbid, there was polio. So the second thing is to make sure that you have the vaccinations so that you don't get the communicate diseases. So those are the 2 things besides eating right, and exercising that we can do. Those are the physical things, right? So that's what we stop with the physical things. So that's why I understood that the Rambam would very much hold from genetic testing and from vaccinations. Why? Because those are very important things. Because he said it could be genetic diseases or it could be communicated diseases. Those two diseases can happen. And the Rambam actually quotes that that's what could be. And he was definitely way ahead of his time. I mean, what did he know about vaccinations? And what did he know about genetic testing? And that's what he was trying to say, basically.
Preventive care. Right?
Preventive care. Right, but that's also preventive care, right? Everything is preventive care. Eating right, exercising, it's all preventive care. But those two things a lot of people don't think about. So in other words, someone could have an impairment from birth, or they can get a plague or something else. Okay, so that is physical health. Now, emotional health. Okay, people, how do we stay emotionally healthy?
Be calm.
Be calm. Okay, you can say that. Be calm. That's easy thing. That's easy to say, right?
I was about to say.
It's very easy
right?
to say. Elaborate on what means be calm. Okay, so let's go through a few of these. Number one is to be grateful. We get up in the morning. What do? First thing you say is Mota Ani. Thank you, God. Okay, how are you going to be calm? Start with grateful, right? Gratefulness. I believe that I am grateful for what? Somebody told me the other day that they were so upset that they gave people, so many people, they gave scholarships for school. And one person they didn't give. And they still feel bad that one person that they didn't give. That's not called being grateful. You did so much in your life. You've given so much good for everybody else. That one thing that you didn't do, you're going to focus on that? That's where your negative focus is going to be? Instead of thinking of all these wonderful people that went through the system because you gave them a scholarship. So that's a form of gratefulness. Okay, that's number one. Number two, when we get up in the morning, we need to jump out of bed. Quick. I remember, I think I told you this before. The first thing you do is when you open your eyes, you say Moda'ani, and then you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, blast off. I'm jumping out of my bed as quickly as possible. That is number two. If you don't do that, you can stay in bed for another 10, 15, 20, half hour, and forget about getting out. Why? Because, another 2 minutes, another 5 minutes. But guess what, guys? You're just going to keep staying there. So if you can think of yourself as being that spaceship and counting down in the morning, so get out, and that'll be it. That's number two. Number three, we need to find a meaning and a purpose to live. Why are we in this world? What do we need to do different than anybody else in this world? Why am I here? Think about it. You find that purpose and that meaning, that gives you emotional health. That's number three. Number four, and therefore, then you can stay happy if you do number three. And the fifth one is the most important thing, do for others. Because when you do something for somebody else, you feel amazing. That follows suit. And that's the emotional health. What about the spiritual health? What can we do for our spirituality? Add something in your life. Something small. Look around and see, what can I do to add in my life? Just to tip the scale. The world is standing on your one little extra mitzvah. When you do one little extra mitzvah, you're tipping that scale of the world. Then we can get even to a higher level than spirituality even. What's that? That's the level, because this world is the level of speech. Because how did God create the world? With the letters, right? He said, let there be light, let there be a firmament, speech. What's before speech? Thoughts. What's the difference between thoughts and speech? What does it mean? The difference between thought and speech.
The difference.
Thought is inside yourself, and speech is when you connect to someone else.
Talking to people.
So we understand that the time frame that we have to reach above and beyond is going to be a way of thought. It's going to be a higher level than connecting to anybody else. It's like, to begin with, I'm going to do something special. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to go above and beyond and help another person. And this is the highest level. And that's the level of Mashiach. Okay, so we have healing in the physical is for what reason? So that we can work on our soul. What's the reason we heal physically? So we can work on our spirituality, and we can go to a higher level and help other people, not just to think about ourselves. And that's the way we're going to bring Mashiach. And what does it say the ultimate healing is going to be? It's going to be Das Hashem, will be the knowledge of God. Kamayim hayam chasim. It's going to be like what? Like the water that covers the whole earth. In other words, the water that covers the earth will be, that's as much as the knowledge of God will be. Because we know that this week's Parsha talks about the Jews in Egypt. And we know the ultimate healing was when somebody did above and beyond. And what did the women do in Egypt? Does anybody remember? What did the women do in Egypt?
The sick.
They gave birth to.
They gave birth to children, and they hid their sons, and they kept their daughters alive. And what else did they do? When their husbands went to work in the field, when they went to work for Pharaoh and they came home, they held up the mirrors, right? They held up special mirrors, and they looked at themselves, and they said, look at us. You know, I'm much prettier. And therefore, the husbands were willing to have children. And that's how they got the husbands to have children. And that's how they were able to continue the Jewish nation. And we know that especially, that, and the women that are righteous, now we will go out of exile. So that's the idea, that we need to be the ones that are the healers. We need to start with our physical, go to our emotional, then the spiritual, and then to Mesiras Nefesh, which means above and beyond. We need to go above and beyond and try to make this world a happier and more wonderful place.
Amen.